Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Health Code, where today we're going to talk about light. Now, light really is the very foundation of everything that we see on our planet, everything that grows, everything that functions, including us. Without light, simply wouldn't be able to exist. Yet we have been, in my opinion, conditioned to fear light, certain types of light anyway, and be very ignorant about modern types of artificial light. So to break it down to be really, really simple and obvious, without the sun, which is the very foundation of the light on this planet, it's the very foundation of everything on this planet. Without it, there would be nothing. We've been conditioned for years to fear it. We've been programmed and indoctrinated to be very ignorant about it and to only really hear about the negative things surrounding it. And we've not been taught at all about the new forms of artificial light and the detrimental effects that they have on health, pure and simple. Now, I'm going to put up this little graph here. Most of you, if not all of you, will have seen that at school, seen that in places before. This is the electromagnetic spectrum, all the way from radio waves up to gamma rays with everything in the middle. Obviously, the visible light spectrum is right there in the middle. Now, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005%, according to mainstream science, of what exists in the universe. And visible light, as you can see, is a very small fraction of that. So when you look at life and our reality from that perspective, the idea that we know everything there is to know, or the idea we know even a percentage worth commenting on about what there is to know is quite laughable, really, when you look at it from that perspective. But all those forms of light in that visible light spectrum and surrounding it, a lot of them come from the sun. You have ultraviolet light coming from the sun, which we're told is what is the leading reason for melanoma and skin cancers and so on. You also have infrared, near infrared, and far infrared lights as well coming from the sun throughout the course of a day. You have different types of light that come through in different points throughout the day. You have obviously the midday sun, as it's known, when it's most intense. And if there is a time to stay out of direct sunlight for a prolonged period of time, maybe it is that. But apart from that, I think the healing benefits and the health benefits of the sun are absolutely enormous. And we'll dive into some of the reasons why in a second. But if you look at history and you look at how we interact with the sun, how we interact with light, and you take that back to, a century ago, let's say, people would have spent pretty much their entire lives outside. We weren't wearing clothes in the same way we are now, in terms of, wearing clothes all the time, always covered up when you go out in the sun. And also when the sun went down, things stopped. Manufacturing stopped, industry stopped because artificial light wasn't there. So there was a separation between night and day, light and dark. And also, as a result, your body could start to get into a routine when looking at the light. These days, people are sat under artificial light from sometimes the minute they wake up, if they pick up their phone and look at it, right up until when they go to bed, when invariably, again, people are doom scrolling on their phones or they've just finished watching television, long after the sun's gone down, staring at that blue light, artificial light, which is obviously not a good thing. And we are seeing the effects of that in people's health, in people's vision, in terms of the amount of people that are needing glasses at younger ages. That's something that's come alongside the mass rollout of mobile phones and other forms of technology that have this blue light coming off of it. It's become semi-acknowledged now to the point where these phones, or a lot of them, have blue light blockers. You can buy blue light blocker glasses and so on, which is what you see me occasionally wearing sometimes in the morning doing trending. But it's very clear that we are being conditioned and have been conditioned to fear the natural, but accept the artificial and the unnatural. And we see that right across the world in lots of different areas. And almost all of them, when it comes to our health, is causing a detrimental impact. Last week, we spoke about the Eat Well plate and we spoke about natural foods versus highly processed, ultra processed foods. Same principle, natural foods, organic, you can tell what it is. It's in its base state. It's a natural thing versus ultra processed, artificial, fake manufactured foods. Same principle applies with light. You've got the sun. When you look out, you've got the sun. You've got that natural being, that natural body that without it, there would be no life on Earth. And then you're replacing that with this fake artificial man-made light, and we're told to fear that, or we're told to limit that, but this is absolutely fine. Does that sound good? Does that sound like it makes sense? To me, it absolutely doesn't sound like it makes sense in any way, shape or form. But alternative health practitioners and alternative health speakers are starting to really gain some traction when talking about this subject, because light is something that is so easy, so simple. We've been, again, conditioned by health experts, usually coming out of the mainstream, that you need to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds every single month on supplementation, on these ridiculous home devices that are going to treat your health, that are going to take care of this, take care of that, when really simplicity is always the way to go. They're trying to overcomplicate everything to make the whole concept of optimum health seem so unattainable, seems so much effort. Oh, I've got to get up at 2 a.m. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to spend this money. I've got to spend that. I haven't got time to do it. Well, I think everyone can get up and spend 10 minutes in the sun, 10 minutes in the garden under the light in the morning. And there's this whole myth that it has to be in broad, beautiful sunshine. Well, if you're in certain parts of the world, you're not going to get that. We certainly don't. It's grey as you like in this morning. I've still been out for a walk, because getting under that light, whether it's sunshine, whether it's not, whether there's cloud cover, the light and the different forms of light from the sun are still reaching your skin. They're still reaching your corneal receptors in your eyes. Nope, that costs nothing. That costs a little bit of time. And it really is a little bit of time. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. If you have a morning coffee, go and sit in your garden and have it. These are so easy, such simple changes to make that don't require a load of money, don't require a load of people to help you do it. It's a real simple decision. And I guarantee, speaking from personal experience, you do it for 3 or 4 days and you all of a sudden see the difference and feel the difference. You'll feel more vibrant. You'll feel more connected. You know, if you want to take it one step further, get your feet barefoot on the earth at the same time. You know, whether that's your garden, whether that's the sand, whatever it might be. These things are free. These things are easy. And they're not new. These are traditions in tribes and traditions in cultures that go back generations and generations. This whole idea that this health movement of ancestral eating, well, the fact that it's called ancestral eating just means going back to what people did previously. So there's nothing new about it. Whether it be breath work, whether it be grounding, whether it be tree hugging, whether it be, you know, natural light on your skin, early morning, first morning light, ideally bare chested. Whether it's that, that's not new. Even some of the other alternative things we've spoken about, like homeopathy and herbalism, these concepts aren't new. They're just things that have been pushed to one side because modern medicine took over and barged its way into the room and told everybody it had all the answers. But people are now starting to realize actually it doesn't have all the answers. In fact, it has very little answers, especially if you don't want to go down the drug-based treatment. It has basically no answers. So they're looking for alternatives. And they're looking for ways to take back that power and take back that control rather than hand it over to the doctor or the physician. Getting out in the morning and getting some natural light on your skin, that's you taking control of your health. It's an unbelievable way to start the day. And we're just going to run through some of the key benefits. Firstly, sounds crazy because you're getting up in the morning. It actually promotes better sleep. And we'll come to your circadian rhythm and what that means in a second, and how artificial light does the opposite and detrimentally impacts that. It reduces fatigue and alleviates gloominess, triggers vitamin D synthesis within the skin. Now, this is a really, really interesting one because vitamin D3 in particular, is absolutely essential for your immune system. It's essential for optimum health. And basically everybody is deficient in it, especially if you live in a country like England or others where there's a lot of rain, large parts of the year, you don't get a lot of sunlight. You need to try and capitalize on that while it's there. And your body can obviously store that vitamin D. So if you build up your reserves through those warmer, sunnier months, it will see you through the winter. But if you don't do that and you're hiding away from the sun and you're not going to do that, then obviously you're going to then have the winter months where you're even lower. And supplements, as much as they can help in certain areas, they just don't cut it when compared to the real thing. So vitamin D production, for me, is one of the most essential benefits that we get from light. Energy efficiency is a big one. It reduces, if you get out in the sun, you can reduce your reliance on artificial light. You know, we don't need artificial light. We get our windows open, we get the curtains open, we get that natural light coming into the house. And also it's very, very good for your house in general. It reduces mold, reduces things like that, and so on. Now, they're just some of the key benefits of light. And they, again, as I've said at the start, these are commonly known. These are not things that are new. These are not things that are revolutionary, that someone's only just started speaking about. These are very new. Now, if we're going to compare how people would have lived not too long ago to how they are living now, in terms of the amount of time they are spending outside and the amount of time they are spending now interacting with artificial light, whether that's sat in office blocks under LED lighting, or whether that, so ironically, well, I've got two big LED lights pointing at me now, whether it be that or whether it be blue light coming off mobile phones and other forms of technology. Okay, so right now, the average Brit, this is actually from the Derbyshire Telegraph just down the road, the average Brit spends 84 minutes outside daily. Now, this is a study that's been done with 2,000 adults, and it shows that they spend just 84 minutes outdoors, and 1 in 5 don't get to go outside really at all day, less than 5 minutes. So basically a commute. Now, compare that to not too many generations ago. People would have spent the vast majority of their day outside. Now compare it to this very simple one. The average time a person spends on their mobile phone on any given day is between 3 and 4 hours. So over twice the amount of time people spend outside, nearly 3 times actually, it's between 3 and 4.5 hours of time that they spend outside, they actually spend on their mobile phones, almost 3 times as much. So you're spending 3 more times under artificial light with other detrimental impacts like radiation and obviously all the mental health impacts of social media and all of those things that you're getting from that mobile phone as well. You're spending 3 times the amount on something fake than you are on something natural. Just that statistic alone gives us a huge clue as to why the health of the people, why the health of the planet, and why the mental health of the planet is declining. We can all speak from experience. When you sit out in the sun, even if it's for 10 minutes, you immediately feel better. You immediately feel happier. You immediately feel recharged, because essentially that's what it is. It's a battery charger. Your body needs it to thrive and survive. So you're essentially giving it some sustenance that it wants. Sitting there and holding up these phones is doing the exact opposite of that. And we spend 3 more times doing it. That statistic alone, that one change would have such an impact on the health of people and on the health of the population. Unbelievable impact. So just to dive in to what blue light actually is, which is what we're getting coming off of this technology, coming off of these phones. Blue light refers to a high energy short wavelength, band of visible light. Now, it is emitted by the sun in small quantities, but it's emitted by digital screens, LED lighting mainly, and it heavily influences our sleep, our mood, and our alertness. 3 very crucial things for optimal health and performance in life. If you're not sleeping right, you're not going to be healthy. Sleep is absolutely essential. This whole thing that if you sleep, you're lazy, sleep too much, you can't be bothered, that's absolutely untrue. If you sleep too little, you'll become less productive. Your mood is obviously incredibly essential for how you're feeling about your life, how the people around you are feeling, whether they're getting the best version of you, the worst version of you, what kind of boss you are, what kind of parent you are, what kind of friend you are. All of those things are dictated by your mood. And obviously your alertness as well is going to hugely impact your presence in the room. If you're not feeling very alert, you're not going to perform at your best. So hugely impacting. And that is coming off of these phones and these technologies day in, day out. It's coming out of all these LED lights day in, day out that people spend. So if they're spending 84 minutes outside, that means they're spending the vast majority, well over 22 hours of their day inside. Now, obviously, there'll be nighttime, so we'll take 8 hours off of there. But that's still leaving 14 plus hours a day that people are probably under some form of artificial light. 4 hours we mentioned on the phones. You've also got then the artificial light being sat in the office. You've got the computers that they're probably working on if they're in an office type environment for their job. All of these things are going to contribute to negatively impacting your sleep, your mood, and your alertness. Now, circadian rhythm, which I mentioned earlier, which I said we'd come back to, this essentially is your sleep rhythm. It's how your body regulates its sleep. And if you disrupt that, you feel dreadful. You feel absolutely dreadful. Now, sleep, we're going to get into in a future episode because that's a huge subject as well. We can speak for hours just on that and how there's so many different ways that people can or will try and sleep using certain cycles to get the best benefits from their sleep and most productivity from their sleep. They'll set alarms to get up at a certain time, go to sleep at a certain time based on these rhythms. It's very, very technical if you want to get into it. I don't go quite as extreme as that personally, but I think that some people do, and there's a lot of very interesting health benefits for that. But to simplify it, circadian rhythm is basically what regulates your sleep. And if you disrupt it, if you upset it, then your body will it'll let you know big time that it's not happy in terms of how you feel. Blue light is the primary cue that suppresses melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. Melatonin is essentially important. It's what helps you fall asleep. It's what helps you go into that deep sleep. So exposing yourself to these bright screens, this artificial blue light just before bed is incredibly detrimental. Now, this is an interesting one. They say that morning exposure to blue light actually boosts alertness. However, morning exposure to natural blue light, so getting out in the sun. Artificial blue light is certainly not doing that because, again, it's artificial. It's not real. It's fake. Getting yourself out in the morning sun, that will absolutely boost alertness. It will boost your mood. It will boost all of those things. The next big impact of blue light is eye strain. Now, blue light does not damage your retina or damage your eyes, officially directly. However, prolonged screen usage absolutely causes eye strain because you blink less frequently, and that causes eyes to dry out, which can cause them to feel tired and lethargic. And obviously, we all know when you get to the end of the day and your eyes are a bit, you're rubbing your eyes, you're a bit tired, that things like blue light, particularly towards the end of the day, will amplify those symptoms and make them more and more impactful upon your life in a negative way, of course. So really, the kind of overarching message of this episode is that alongside food, alongside your environment, alongside getting out in nature, alongside who you surround yourself with, the message is very much the same across all of these things, which is less of the fake, less of the artificial, less of the unnatural, the man-made, and more of the natural. We've got this beautiful natural world that very few people actually seem to embrace and enjoy. I've said this a few times on previous episodes. I don't believe that we were born to live in high-rise cities and all be crammed on top of each other with no natural environment, no nature, no anything like that around us, to be sat in bed 30 stories up in the air. That just doesn't feel natural to me. And I'm not in any way judging anybody who lives that way. If you live that way and that works for you and you're feeling great, then absolutely amazing, good on you. But you've only got to look around. Most people aren't feeling okay. Most people's status quo is not something that they would contently say, I'll be happy with this for the rest of my life. Most people aren't happy. Most people are struggling in various ways, whether that be with their health, whether that be with their mental health. And all I'm trying to do with this podcast and these episodes is just provide some really simple, bite-sized, tangible ways that you can make an impact on your health or try and make an impact on your health without needing to break the bank, without needing to get up 3 hours before you need to, without spending time away from your family, without any crazy over-the-top major life changes which sound and look daunting and incredibly intimidating. They're just really simple changes. And what I always suggest to people, anyone asks me, is try one a month. Try one of these simple changes a month and just build upon it. So let's say we were starting this at the beginning of the year. You've got 12 months. Okay. So you've got throughout the year, you've got an opportunity to do 12 new things. Now, if you want to be really aggressive, do a new one every week or a new one every fortnight. But just for simplicity, let's do one every month. So let's start. Right. Okay. I'm going to get up half an hour earlier and I'm going to go and have my morning coffee rather than stood in the kitchen or rather than sat on the sofa scrolling through my phone. I'm going to go and sit in my garden. I'm going to go and get some natural light, or I'm going to go and put it in a stainless steel takeaway coffee cup, not one of the horrible plastic ones. And I'm going to go and drink it while having a walk for half an hour around my local area. I'm going to get out, get a bit of exercise, get my feet moving, get the blood flowing and get under some light. Do that for 30 days. See how you feel. Next, you could say, right, I'm going to try some breath work. I'm going to try doing 30 in, 30 out breaths and do that 3 times and see how I feel. Do that for 30 days. Right, I'm going to get up and do a bit of exercise 3 times a week. Try that for 30 days. I'm going to cut this out of my life in terms of my food. And I'm going to try this for 30 days. I'm going to try and read 10 pages a day for 30 days, whatever. And before you realize it, you've changed one thing. But then you've felt the benefits, then you've tried something else, then you felt the benefits, then you tried something else. 6 months, you're unrecognizable. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Not because you've drastically ripped up the rule book and changed everything overnight. That works for some people. Some people absolutely need that. And when it comes to health, for a lot of people, if they get sick, they get a diagnosis, they get a prognosis from the doctor, they will have to rip up everything and start from scratch and do everything 100% right. Now, that's not most people. Most people haven't got the mindset to do that. I certainly haven't. And also, most people, there's not a necessity to do that. Simple changes that are sustainable is absolutely the way to go. People set up these insane diets and insane routines, normally just before a holiday, where they have to do this, they have to do that. And it's 3 weeks of this, 3 weeks of that, and you hate it. And as soon as you're finished, you can't wait to stop. You can't wait to go back to doing what you were doing before. Now, if you look at a 12-month period, what's going to be more beneficial to your health over the long run? Being 75% all the time, 75%, 3/4 of the time you're on it, quarter of the time, 25% of the time you get to maybe have a little bit of fun. What's going to get you more health benefits? That for 12 months, or you being 95%, 99% for 2 months, then 3 months off, then a month here, then 3 months off, then a month here, then 2 months off. Being 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 all the time, that's going to lead you to much bigger health benefits. So therefore, I think creating something that you feel is sustainable, and this is always much easier if you're doing it with somebody. You know, if you're in a relationship, if you've got friends or family that are wanting to do the same thing, it's much easier when you do it together. You support each other, you push each other, you pick people up, you give them a nudge when they need it, you give them some home truths when they need it, and vice versa. And you also feel part of something. Absolutely, that helps. But ultimately, it does come down to the relationship that you have with the person in the mirror. How much do you want to invest in yourself? How much do you want to invest in being the best version of yourself, whether that's just for you, whether that's for the people around you to benefit, whether that's for the world to benefit? Because I strongly believe that every single person alive has a gift. They have a gift to give the world. We haven't always figured out what it is yet. I certainly haven't figured out what mine is. Most people are probably in the same boat. But I'm not going to give up trying, because I think it's our duty to be that, to contribute whatever it is that we can contribute. And that can be big, that can be small, that can be something that you get remembered in history for, that can be something that 3 people in your street will always remember you for. It doesn't matter. We all have a contribution to make, I feel. And by giving yourself the self-respect to, my well-being and my health actually matters, because if that's on point, I'm going to get a better version of myself, and therefore so is everybody else. I think that's absolutely essential. So the takeaway from today's episode to do with light is the foundation of everything. Without the sun, we don't have anything. So rather than listen to the fear-mongering that tells us to avoid it, let's embrace it. Okay, don't be an idiot. Don't spend 10 hours a day sat out in the sun without your top off. That's probably not going to be great for you. But getting out, getting the morning light, getting some good light on your skin throughout the day, the different forms of light as it evolves through infrared to UV, blue light and so on from the natural source, that's going to be nothing but beneficial for your health. And you've only got to look back through history and see how we lived not too long ago. And these ancient tribes, these ancient civilizations, they knew this. And this knowledge is still there. It's just being suppressed and it's being marginalized. And people are being indoctrinated to ignore what is exactly we need to be doing and exactly what sounds natural. Do you really think as a natural biological entity, we were born to sit under fake artificial light all day and fear what is natural, and without it, no life would exist on this planet? I mean, just answer that question for yourself. Only one of them makes any sense. Well, thank you for tuning in with me for Health Code. There's no episode next week. Where am I next week? I'm somewhere in England, recording the last 3 interviews for this Flat Earth documentary, which I'm working on at the moment, which will be out in September. So I'll be back the following week. I think that will be the 2nd of June. I'll be back. Well, and we're going to talk about sleep, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to do a deep dive into that, no pun intended, because it's so important. Sleep is essential to optimum health, and it's something that not enough people do enough research about, I don't think. And even health influencers and researchers don't talk about sleep anywhere near as much as I think they should. So we'll dive into that. Until then, have a fantastic week. I'll be back with you for trending next week at some point, and I'll speak to you very, very soon. Good health. Take care.